What's up, internet? Just thought I'd try a different intro than normal. Just saying, hey, what's up? Welcome to a brand new snoCast. This is a very special one because I have a very special guest. I feel like I always say that, but in particular, I mean it today because I'm joined by Chadunda. Welcome, Chadunda.
Hey, thank you. You all know who I am. You all know me. And if you don't know me, now you know.
Yep, that's him. Or as Peridactyl so lovingly refers to him, Chadunda Badunda Fee Fi Fo Funda.
That's my other name. You're right, you got me.
Yep, I like that. You know, I feel like you should start a second channel and just call it that, because that'd be awesome.
It'll all just be really good joke videos. Yeah.
It could be your Baz Rutten channel, you know?
I've always thought of making one of those.
I think we all should just have a Baz Rutten channel. I actually talked to Raz about that, because, like, I would totally do that and just name it Go Man's Naming. And like all the other guys, like, we all have names that we could do that. We could change the name around. You could be Dad Chunda.
That just, alright.
I mean, why not?
Yeah, wow, that sounds amazing. I like that name. Dad Chunda.
Dad Chunda, exactly. There you go. That's a free idea. You can just take that.
Thank you. I'll take that. I'll give you royalty. I'll give you 5% every penny I make.
See, this is how you do YouTube, people. You just make connections. That's how it works. Chadunda, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what you do on YouTube, and so we can check you out.
I do the YouTube videos. I talk about the video games, and I try to be concise. I try to be informative, and I try to bring new ideas to people's minds and help them think about video games in a way that they might not think about them already. I don't want to say pretentious, but that's a word that's been used to describe me before. But yeah, if you like gaming news and talking about things going on in the industry and looking at games in a new way, then watch any YouTube channel. But if you want to watch them with my voice, you can watch me.
It is a good voice.
Thank you.
And absolutely, no, I love really good content. If you go and check out Chadunda, you get quality stuff. I would not say pretentious. I would not. I would just say good.
Well, I appreciate that.
So anyway, excuse me. I asked Chadunda to join me today because our topic is a very special one. We're not going to talk about Undertale necessarily specifically, but it spurned on this idea that I had for a cast where... well, we'll dive into it, but Chadunda was one of the first people I talked to about Undertale. You enjoyed the game, right?
Yeah, it was definitely something that I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because obviously there was all this hype beforehand from people saying, you know, play it, it's so good, it's the best game in the world, and we'll talk about that because that's part of our topic today. But I played it, and at first I wasn't like, I didn't quite get it. When I was like halfway through my first playthrough, I was like, I mean, it's funny, like, you know, it's quirky, it's got, like, the humor and stuff, and it's cool, but I didn't quite get what people were saying as far as, like, why is it the best game ever? And then, you know, I beat it, and then played through different playthroughs to do the different endings, and, yeah, it was really good. And I got it. And we talked about it. We kind of just talked about the different endings and stuff. What was kind of your impressions playing through?
So the first time that I had approached the game, it was something that I wasn't expecting to be really that great. Because when people tend to talk nonstop about how it's great and it's the game of the year and all that sort of stuff, I tend to go into things thinking it's probably really not going to be that great, but maybe it'll do something interesting and new.
Yeah.
So when I was playing it, I was kind of in this mode where I was nitpicking. So
yeah.
I was finding a lot of flaws that I don't really think other people really cared about. I was kind of just like, oh, this thing's bad because other people said it's good, and I turned into sort of a contrarian. But about halfway through the game, I started noticing that I was kind of just laughing at everything. Like the first half of it, rather. I was laughing a lot. Like I was laughing a lot more than I ever had at really any other game I had played this year. It was really, really funny. It was really enjoyable, and as soon as I got to the end, I didn't feel that game of the year. I didn't feel that best game ever made sort of mentality people had, but I definitely felt that it was something unique. It was something that did something new, and it was an experience that I think I could definitely recommend to other people.
Yeah, and I agree completely. I was definitely, by the ending, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. And playing through the different playthroughs just even more reinforced that, which I talk about in my good game design on it. And I don't want to go super spoilery into it just because of, well, ironically, because that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. But just in case there's still people out there that haven't played it, I won't go super in depth. But just know, yeah, it was super good. I really enjoyed it. But it's funny because we've already talked a lot about it, there was all that hype attached to it from people before I ever played it. It kind of came out of nowhere too, which was another thing. Like, I had never heard of it before it came out.
Yeah,
I
same.
don't know if you had.
No, I hadn't heard about it. When it had released and people started talking about it, I still didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Do a couple Google searches.
I know, and I watched the trailer, and I was definitely intrigued. I wasn't a big fan of Earthbound, or I guess what I should say is I've never played Earthbound. That's a better way to put it. But it doesn't look like it would interest me. I'm not like, really excited to play Earthbound or something like that. It's like on my to-play list, but it's not very high on the to-play list.
Yeah.
So I didn't think, I would really like it, because the influence is obviously there. And I was like, okay, it'd be like an Earthbound thing. And what I noticed is the people that were like, yes, this is the best game ever, were people that loved Earthbound. So I thought, oh, okay, so I probably won't get it or something. But that obviously wasn't the case. It did a lot new and unique that I hadn't seen in games before. So that was cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, so there was all this hype attached to it. And what's weird about it is that definitely affected how people played it, I think. And that's kind of where we're going with this topic, and it's a bit broader than just Undertale, but it's kind of what spurred me onto it, is how does hype affect how a person plays a game? And how is it good or bad? Because hype is like supposed to be a good thing, right? It's like, yeah, this is a good game. Go check it out. It's super cool. I mean, I do videos like that all the time that are just like, hey, this game is awesome. Go play it. But it's weird because Undertale has been this weird rare case where sometimes it's been overhyped so much that it's like ruined people's experience with it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like I talked to Mitch, Heavy Eyed, and he's like, man, it totally ruined his experience of it. It's like he thought it was very average and just way overhyped.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people, especially those who tend to hype things up a little too much, kind of ruined it for other people simply by talking about it. I'm trying to think of how I'm going to word this. So, when I first saw people tweeting about it, they were talking about it's the best game ever. Like we were saying earlier, like a lot of people were saying it's the best game ever. It's game of the year. Mm-hmm. It's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. But I never really saw a concrete, here's why it's good sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or an example of this is why it's good. And I think that sort of thing that was going on, that Twitter love for it, the love it got on Reddit, the love it got on 4chan, a bunch of different websites, all talking about it. I think that sort of put a thought into people's minds that it was just going to be the best thing ever. And especially, for me, I went into it almost looking for problems.
Yeah.
Not so I could argue with people, but just because I felt like there needed to be something wrong with it.
Right.
Because people were like, it's the best thing ever, oh my god. And every time anyone says that, there's always problems.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was a combination of the two things, because there was hype for it, which can be problematic if it's overhyped, but combined with no one wanted to spoil anything, because it's also another rare case of a game where if you spoil anything, it would ruin it for you.
Yeah.
Which that in itself was more interesting to me, because we have spoiler warnings about games, sure, but for some reason, Undertale felt like on this different plane of spoiler warning. Like, you can't even, I can't tell you anything. None of the conversations, any of the characters you meet, all of that would be spoiled and ruined for you if I told you about it. And so, what we saw were a lot of video reviews that didn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
And I think that added to the problem, where there's this massive amount of hype, but no reasoning. And that's where the frustration came, I think.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's Undertale's definitely an anomaly. I think that's the best way to explain the game in its entirety. The mechanics surrounding it and the mechanics within it are so interesting and so unique that in talking about them, it sort of alters your experience. Because going into it, I knew that you couldn't kill anyone, or you didn't have to kill anyone, and arguably anyone who knew about the game before it came out already knew that, because that was the big tagline for the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
That was the way it was explained by Toby. So anyone going into it was kind of like, yeah, you don't have to kill anyone, but I didn't know that until someone had told me. So if I had gone into it not knowing I would have killed anyone, or I could just spare everyone, the game kind of explains it, but if I had not known that, I would have gotten to the battle against, what's his name? Asgore, like the last boss.
Yeah.
Or, well, not the last boss, but you know what I mean.
Yes. The king.
If I had gotten to that point, because I spent a good 5-6 tries just sparing him constantly after the Azrael fight, or whatever, Toriel, sorry. And,
Right.
because when you fight Toriel, you know, most people end up killing her because they don't know that if you just keep hitting spare, you save her. Or, well, you don't have to fight her. So I got to that fight, and I was like, you know, I'll keep dodging, and eventually he'll give up.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. So in finding that out, in finding out that you could spare everyone, because that's what I was told, I went into that fight not knowing. So that changed my experience. It altered the way I played the game just because somebody spoke to me about the mechanics of the game. And that's interesting, because I can't think of any other game that simply talking about its mechanics, simply talking about its ideas, can ruin the experience. Like, I really can't think of another game that I've ever played that if I were to say, hey, fighting this character or beating this enemy gets you an item, or something like that, like, it would never ruin the experience. It would it would let you know that you're going to get an item at the end, but I think that's a perceived thing. But with this, it was sort of like, it really changes the way that you play the game by knowing simply its ideas and its mechanics.
Yeah, I know, and that's exactly right that you said it's an anomaly, because that I don't know that I've seen a game like that either. There's definitely spoilers in games, and it's like, okay, I don't want to spoil, and normally it's only the ending, right?
Yeah.
But for Undertale, it's like everything, the intro, every character you meet, and it's. I think part of it's because it's extremely narrative based, so everything ties together. It's all based on that narrative. Man, it's just every single thing in that game is either like a joke or like, you know, a jab at traditional RPG elements, and so just like jokes to you or breaking the fourth wall, or it's tied to spoilers in a story. And so just like everything, it's like I don't want to spoil these jokes for you because the jokes are great. And I want you to experience them and not have them spoiled. And then I also don't want to spoil the characters along the way, the ones that might die, etc., the story. So it's just everything.
Yeah.
So like if you were to do a non-spoiler review of Undertale, it ends up just being like, hey, look at it. There's a lot of choices, and you walk around like you just have to show the first screen over and over again. Like, it's just crazy.
I think Jack Bros tried to do one.
Yeah.
Where he was like being a little, he was trying to not spoil stuff. He did a pretty okay job of not showing anything that was major. He just showed random encounters. But I think that's definitely something that a lot of the reviewers are trying to avoid doing, is showing any spoilers. Like you said, like just by saying anything, like even in your good game design video, by saying anything about the plot, anything about the game itself. Because in your video you talked about, you know, you had to talk about core components in order to make your point. And in doing so, anyone that hadn't played the game would have watched that and been like, oh, like, that's really cool, but, like, spoiler warnings only go so far, you know?
Yeah.
Like, as we all know. Like, you can only say, don't watch the video, but if someone watches it, you know, it's out of your hands. It's their own fault. But just by talking about, like, the fact that you can choose not to, talking about different combat scenarios, it's like, it changes the way people perceive the game, and it's something reviewers have to avoid just as much as people discussing like the design of the game, what it does for gaming in general, like stuff like that. Like people just doing discussion pieces have to avoid that sort of stuff, even because you never know, right? It's so spoiler heavy, as you said, like it's so narratively focused that just talking about it in any degree narratively can ruin the experience for some people.
Well, I think people took it to a new level with Undertale. Like,
yeah.
People were upset when they found out something about Undertale that to me seemed really minor. Or, you know, like, Jock Bros is actually a good example. And, you know, Casposaurus is like, I love Casp, and I don't know if he's joking half the time. but he was like, Jack, you ruined my Undertale experience because he said there's a plot twist, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, just knowing there's a plot twist, that alone just ruins the plot twist. And I saw other people complaining on Twitter, and like, people ruined the mechanics to me, and so that spoiled the whole thing for me. I don't even want to play it now. And I just think, what? Like, it's really foreign to me, because any other game, like, that's what you show off, for the mechanics, right? Like, a trailer is like, that's what you show that stuff off. And like you said in Undertale, that's the tagline is, hey, you don't have to kill anybody. So like, if you ever watched a trailer before playing it, you would know that anyway. So to say that spoils it, I mean, I guess it does to a degree, but that's the draw, right? That's what pulls you in, is like, oh, cool, this is different. I don't have to kill anyone. I think people just, for some reason with Undertale, got more upset with spoilers for like little things than other games, and I don't know exactly why.
It's definitely hard to look at just Undertale and try to figure out why that is. I suppose it's mostly to do with the lore of the game, that it's got so much going on that the more you discuss it, the more you can ruin it, even for people that already beat it twice, 3 times.
Yeah.
There's information that they might not even know. Like, that's how deep it goes, that just beating the game 3 times may not give you all of the story. It may not reveal everything to you. So someone who got genocide one way, neutral, well, I guess the neutral ending's kind of just the neutral ending. But the neutral ending, and then there's multiple versions of that, and then the pacifist, like, even if they were to get one of each, they're still missing part of the story. Yeah. So by discussing what you got at the end, you're ultimately changing that. And that's interesting, but it also kind of ruins any means of discussion. Like, it's hard to talk about the game when every single possible thing that could happen could ultimately alter someone's perspective on the game. Like, you need to get every possible ending before you could have a clear discussion without having anything ruined for you. It's interesting.
The coolest thing for me was when I beat it, and I talked to you, and I talked to a few other people, and the coolest thing was everybody had a different ending.
Yeah.
So that kind of blew my mind, because I talked to you. I think you had like just finished a pacifist run when I beat the regular, and so you were like, oh, the feels or something. And then I talked to, Perry, and he had gotten some ending, but where like Metaton took over the land and stuff, and somebody else had a different ending where somebody else took over. And for me, when I played, as I said in my good game design, that like I killed everybody, so like nobody took the throne, and like just everyone was so different, and that was really crazy to me. And so I wanted to keep playing and get the different endings, but I didn't go for like all the different neutral endings, because there's like 20 or something.
Yeah,
but
that's too much.
Yeah, right. And plus, a lot of people that I've seen just looked it up, or they watched a LP of it.
Yeah,
because they didn't want to go through it all again. I know, like, Rasputin's kind of in that boat, where he beat it once and he liked it, but he didn't want to go through it again just to see the different endings. And I think a lot of people are kind of in that boat.
Regarding the twist we were talking about earlier, I don't want to like move back the conversation, but we were talking about like the twist ending thing that was going on Twitter. And that was something that was, it was odd to see, because I had never really seen people talk about twist endings like that. Like, I had seen people talk about twists before, and how it's sort of, knowing there is a twist can ruin your perception of the story, because you're spending the whole time waiting for that twist, waiting for that moment to occur, that you end up missing the build-up, or you miss something else because you don't pay attention to the build-up, because what's the point, Yeah. Being a big fan of BioShock, I know, like, what sort of happens when there is a huge build-up like that for a twist ending, because when I was younger, I had played the demo, and that's what really got me into it, because I had played the demo, and I was like, yeah, I'm really excited to play the rest of it. I like the way that the story's progressing, I like the environments, I like the combat, it was interesting, and I really enjoyed that. But growing up, I found that fans of BioShock tend to ruin the game for everyone else by talking about the fact that there's a twist ending, the fact that what happens in BioShock. I still don't spoil it, because it's such a big deal to me. And it's the fact that people talk about it, the fact that people say that there is a twist ending, kind of, I think, ruins it for other people, more so than any other game. It's ruined my perception of fans of BioShock. And I think really that's where the problem comes from for Undertale. It's the fan base that are making it such a big deal, because just saying there's a spoiler doesn't necessarily ruin the experience. It can make people anticipate a twist ending, but it doesn't necessarily ruin the experience overall. Like, just talking about the fact that there's a twist ending, just talking about that there are multiple endings, can incite such malice and such anger in the comments from fans and from non-fans. It's insane. It's definitely something I haven't seen from any other fan base, any other game to discuss. Just talking about the lore incites anger, because it's like, you need to play it, you need to experience the lore. It's like, all right, man. I mean, I like talking about it too. Whatever you say.
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, you're right about twists, because like the point of a twist is to catch you off guard, right?
Yeah.
So if you're expecting it coming, or oh, there's this twist, it does totally ruin it. I remember talking to Steve Ohobo because he knew there was a twist in Undertale, and there's like this little talk with Mettaton about how what's her name? The doctor, Alphys, is lying to you. She planned this all along, etc. Which I thought was weird, and then it didn't really like elaborate on that. And so I remember Steve playing through that, and then he got to that point, and he goes, "Oh," and he like eye roll. Is this the plot twist that Alphys is just it was all planned all along and stuff? And knowing already, I was like, no, that is not the big plot twist. But I could see already that like his perception of the plot twist was already way lessened because he just knew it was coming.
Yeah, that's really good. That's actually a really good example. Like, he was just playing and just a regular thing occurred. Not a regular thing, but a thing that just wasn't really that big of a plot twist, I guess. Yeah. Was something that, because he knew there was one, he was like, this must be it. I found it. Ha-ha!
Right. And it's a totally different reaction than if it does catch you off guard. Like, that it makes it feel so much less, I don't know, accomplishing isn't really a good word, but just that feeling, that aha moment, it totally lessens it if you know it's coming or think you found it. Yeah. Especially if it's not a gratifying twist. Like, if that was the big twist, that I would have been disappointed too. So I'm glad it wasn't, but it does change your perception about what happens. Yeah.
Regarding Undertale's fans, again, and the endings, it seems to me, I don't know if you've seen this, because you've done a video on it, but I've seen people talking about other indie games, and the comments on their videos, and the replies they get on different websites are all the exact same thing. It's always people like, hey, what did you think of Undertale? Like, it's become so big that things that aren't even related to it are being related to it. Like, just things that have nothing to do with Undertale are turning into Undertale discussions. It's insane. Like, I was watching someone's video on Indivisible. I think it was Nick's video on Indivisible. And one of the comments was like, Undertale, or something like that. And I was like, you try Undertale? That was a Kickstarter game. It was really good. And it's like, yeah, you're right. But this is a video that's about something else. And it's just, the fans just want to talk about it so rabidly that they're like, any opportunity, we need to discuss it. But then when someone discusses it, the same fans will be like, oh, don't spoil it. Well, then, what do you want?
Exactly.
Like, not to undermine the fans, but like, what do you really want out of it then? If you don't want someone to spoil it, but you want to talk about it, it's so odd to me. I get private conversations, but when you're saying it to like a YouTuber, like, did you play Undertale? Where's your Undertale video? And it's like, yeah.
They all talk that way, by the way.
Everyone has a really bad Adam Sandler voice, yeah. Everybody who likes Undertale has a bad Adam Sandler voice. I would know.
Yeah.
It's just strange. It
is. It's like a weird enigma, and I do think the fan base could, if it continues to be kind of the way it's been, the fan base could also ruin it for a lot of people. Which that's not the first thing that's happened for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of bad fan bases that have ruined a game for people before they've even played it, or a TV show, or a movie, or whatever. So, I've already heard people call it Tumblr Tale and all that jazz. And so, I agree. In my comments on the video, it wasn't a lot of, hey, don't spoil it, because, like, I normally don't care too much about spoiler warnings, but I did try to leave a pretty, poignant spoiler warning at the beginning. Instead, there was a lot of correction, which is also like annoying of fan bases that are like super dedicated. You were wrong about this, and so it's actually like this. Oh, and did you know about this? You didn't mention this, and did you? You're wrong, and so that's annoying.
Did you know that Hoth is not actually the ice planet?
Like stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly you didn't watch episode 3 of season 6 of Star Trek The Next Generation, or you would have known this.
Like, yeah, Undertale seems to be something like that. Like, again, like I said earlier, it's a very lore-heavy game, so the more you play it, the more you know, and there are some people that have beaten that game an insane number of times. There are people that have data mined the game and, like, looked at its code in like, binary.
Yep.
They know the registry codes that Toby writes to and changes information of to store your save in your system so you can't wipe it. Like, people know their stuff about this game, and it blows my mind how dedicated they are. It's really cool to see a dedicated fan base that's so into it, but their love for the game is so strong that they seem to almost ruin it for people that aren't interested.
Yeah.
In like getting that deep into it, because if someone who just casually played it got one ending, like myself at the beginning when I started talking to Jack about it, or Raz who got his ending and was fine with it, those people kind of get left out of the conversation because the fans don't want to spoil it by just talking about like minimal stuff, like little things that really don't ruin your perspective on the story of the game or the plot of the game or whatever, but like they just feel so adamant in not ruining that little itty bitty bit of the plot. And that's interesting. I can't think of any other game. I feel like I've said that like 18 times, but I can't think of any other game that has had a fan base that just doesn't talk about the smallest changes like that. Like the Walking Dead fan base, as soon as that game came out, basically, people were talking about how every episode has like a little thing that changes depending on your choices, and they were all talking about it right away. There was no like keep it to yourself sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like they were talking among among people that had played it. Obviously, they're not spoiling it for people that hadn't played it yet, but newcomers to the series that had just gotten to, like, say, episode 3, they would talk about what happened in episode 2 and how the plot differed and stuff, and they would have conversations with people that hadn't even completed the game yet, but had beaten those episodes. So with Undertale, it's like they can't say anything, but with every other game that has choices, every other game that changes the way that the story moves forward, the way that things occur based on your actions within it, they're fine with talking about it. But Undertale, you can't say anything.
Yeah. That's kind of what has like spurred me onto the whole thing, because why? What makes it so different? I don't understand. Like, it's become this weird phenomenon that it's unlike any other game in that regard, in talking about it. And it's hindered my ability to try to sell people on it. You know? If there's someone that's like, I haven't played it yet, should I play it? I don't know what to say to him anymore, because, you know, if I say, it's amazing, I love the game, it's so good, play it, you know, it's one of my games of the year, like, it's so good, I feel like I might overhype it to them now, because I've seen that ruin people's experience. But instead, if I'm like, you know, it's just average, or like other people that have said that because they genuinely feel that way, it's really average, people have overhyped it, it's just okay, then they might not play it. So it's like this weird in-between zone. What I've been telling people is, it's just a game, experience it for yourself, don't take other people's opinions in it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's the best I can do.
That is a good way of approaching it, because we follow like basically the same people on Twitter.
Yeah,
you saw a lot of what was going on regarding the game, you know, like when it came out and people started playing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And they were just talking about it, but they were never really talking about it. They were always talking about how it's great and how it's the best game ever. And like we said earlier, like it's just something that, you know, it was just being said it's great. Like, it's just great. It's the game of the year. It's such a good game. Mm-hmm. And I was always thinking, like, why? And even now I'm thinking, like, why?
Yeah.
Like, no one's really talking about it, but it's not because they don't know how to. I think it's because they feel like they can't. That in saying, like we said, like, in saying anything, it ruins the way that you look at the game, because the more you know, the more it alters your experience, more so than any other game, at least that I've played. And it changes, I think, how I think a lot of people are going to approach games from now on. Games that are more narratively focused. I think we're going to see a lot more titles being sort of shoved into a corner when it comes to talking about the meat of them, but then, like, everyone else be like, oh, it's really good, but why? Just trust me, it's really good, just play it. Like, when people say that sort of thing, like, people said that sort of thing with Fight Club to me, the film Fight Club. And I had never seen it, obviously, until recently, and someone was like, oh, this is, like, the greatest film I've ever watched, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds really good. I'm gonna check it out. And then I watched it, and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. Is it the greatest film I've ever watched? No.
Yeah.
But it was pretty good. And that's what I think is happening to Undertale right now. And that's what I think might happen to more games in the future. I definitely think Undertale has pulled a fan base that's not like Five Nights at Freddy's fan base, but sort of similar, like the really, really devoted fans, sort of similar to it in many ways, in how they're very devoted. They're very...
the people that are, like, digging really deep into it and stuff.
Yeah, like, there's obviously the fan theories and all that, but there is, like, legitimate connections people are making with the plots and all of that of each separate game, and that's really cool. But I think those kinds of fans, those very devoted people, get attached to these lore-heavy games, and in doing so, they're, like, so afraid of people finding out without doing it for themselves. And we're going to see more games in the future, I think, that end up having that sort of scenario, like with Lisa. Like, I haven't played Lisa yet, I own it, though.
Yeah.
But I'm probably going to play it this week, and maybe next week. And people are... I've really just heard it's great, play it. But I don't know why. It's the same kind of scenario, where it's just like, it's great, play it. And I'm like, I want to know why. But every time...
I can see that being really frustrating to somebody that knows nothing about it, you know? Like, if you've heard all this stuff about Undertale, it's everywhere right now. It's so hot. Like, every video on YouTube is on Undertale. Everyone's talking about it. If you don't know anything about it, and you see the trailer or something, or whatever you look up on your own on it, and you're still, like, not quite convinced, you're like, I don't get it, what's the draw? And you're trying to find out from people what the big deal is, but they don't want to tell you. Like, I could see that being so frustrating, watching all these reviews on it, and they just say, just go play it, you gotta experience it for yourself, but you're like, but why? I just want to know why.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it has a problem as well that, it's definitely not a game for everyone. Like, every game isn't for everyone, every movie isn't for everyone, every book isn't for everyone. But with Undertale specifically, I think it's easy enough to get into, but a lot of people still don't like that kind of gameplay. Some people only like shooters, some people only like strategy games, and just saying, just go play it, even with gameplay footage, like, some people might just not get it. Some people might just not understand why you enjoy it. So, in just saying it's really good, the music's good, or, I don't know, the conversations were interesting. Like, yeah, you're right. I mean, you know, if that's what you think, that's what you think. But to someone who may not be into that genre, if they love your opinion, they listen to your opinion. Like, if you were some big, I don't know, 100,000 subscriber YouTube channel, and you were, like, pulling big opinions, and people were buying games based off your reviews, and you were just to say, it's really good, you should play it, it's a unique experience, you're really gonna like it, and, like, that was the meat of your review, was just you saying it's unique and you gotta play it. People who might not agree with you are gonna play Undertale and be like, nah, this isn't what I wanted. Where's my... Again, everyone is Adam Sandler.
Yeah, it's great.
Where's my shooter? I want my guns. Why can't character carry guns?
That's a really good point, though, because I think that's a big problem Undertale fans are facing, is they expect everyone to feel the same way they did about it.
Yeah.
That's where the problem is, because we have this quote-unquote life-changing experience, right? And we want other people to experience that too, and then when they don't, we, like, get mad at them. Like, what? How could you not love it? It was so good. You clearly didn't play it the right way. You just must have got a bad ending. You
Go get 6 endings, and then you'll like it more.
Okay. I know what you're thinking. You only played it once. You gotta play it 3 more times. Then you'll know what I know. And then you'll feel what I feel. Like, and that is super off-putting to somebody, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the problem, too.
Absolutely.
That's a really good point, because that's hard for me, too, because it's like, I really liked it, and I want you to like it, too. Like, I want you to have the experience I had. So that's where it comes from a good place, but then if they don't have the same experience, like with Mitch or whoever, you know, that's like, it was really just average. Part of me, like, just deep inside is like, no, you're wrong. I want you to say that it's good. Just say that it's good. But, you know, and then, so we really have to be conscious of that like, other people aren't going to have the same experience as you. Even if they liked it, it's a different experience for them. So I think we can't get, like, mad.
Absolutely, yeah.
I really liked what you said earlier about, I'm interested, too, to see how this will affect games in the future. How will this affect how we spoil / don't spoil or hype games in the future? And I don't know. I wonder how it will affect that.
Yeah. Hype has always been a sort of a thing that people don't avoid. Because obviously, you know, people get hyped all the time. I'm excited for, like, tons of games, but I think now more than ever, with the connection we have with people over the internet, through Twitter, through Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, all these websites, and people discussing things, I think, again, now more than ever, we're seeing people hype things, but, like, en masse. Like, we're seeing tweets nonstop. Like, when, at the beginning of October, all I saw were Undertale tweets. Like, my timeline was just full of Undertale. And it's fine. I'm super down to listen and watch people discuss video games thoroughly and talk about them in a really, really new way. And I think Undertale gives the opportunity to do that. But it also gave the opportunity for people to, like, blindly hype things, to sort of blindly boost something up. And then as a result, people would blindly attack it. People would just dislike it because other people liked it. And that's the culture. Yeah, exactly. That's the culture of the internet. Popular things are always hated. We all know that's how it works in every platform, everywhere, in the whole world. The rich are hated, even if they're talented or if they're not. It doesn't matter. They're just hated because they have more money than you. And the YouTubers with 1 million subscribers are always boring and always bad because they have 1 million subscribers.
How do they have 1 million? They're terrible.
They're terrible. They can't even make a Let's Play. Why are you making Let's Plays if you're so boring? Like,
so you have 2 voices. You have Adam Sandler and, like, Mafia Boss. And
an angry Mafia Boss. Hey, what's going on? Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Yes, I agree absolutely. That's the other problem, is it got so popular for some reason. That's the other thing, is, like, I feel like it's so random, just the games that latch on to people sometimes. Like, there's no doubt that Undertale was unique in it. It definitely was worthy of praise. But to the extent that it's gotten, I don't know how it got there, but now it is, and it's everywhere, and everybody's talking about it. And so, as a result, there's the people that are just going to hate on it because it's popular.
Yeah. And I think that is indicative of both the culture of gaming as it is right now, and sort of just the culture of life in general. Like as I said, people just tend to hate things that are more popular.
Yeah.
Some are just contrarians. Some legitimately don't like the thing, but, you know, either way, that tends to be what happens. They play the game, they get their own perspective, or they don't play the game and they just hate the thing blindly because it's so popular. And that's lame. And it doesn't help that no one being able to talk about it, no one being able to explain why it's good, they're just blindly saying it's good, kind of feeds that contrarian anti-hype where you're like, oh yeah, I hate the game because everyone likes it, and that's fine, but it's not fine really, but I mean, yeah, whatever, have whatever opinion you want, but don't just hate something because other people like it. And in the future, I think we'll see more games that don't necessarily fall into the same category as Undertale, because it's definitely its own thing. It's on an entirely different totem pole in regards to how little spoilers you're supposed to have. But regarding the hype, we're going to be seeing, I think, a lot more games that you just can't talk about because the more you talk about, especially with the resurgence of more narratively focused point and click games that don't really have that many mechanics to them, like games like Until Dawn and the new Minecraft story mode, the very popular Minecraft story mode.
Everyone's favorite.
Everyone's favorite. We're going to be seeing more talk about games that are more narratively focused, but we can't really discuss why they're so great. We can't discuss what's so good about them without either blatantly explaining the plot or talking about the mechanics, and doing so, well, what are you going to say? Like, how would you describe The Walking Dead? You'd be like, you click on stuff and you have conversations. Well, why is that fun? That sounds like really boring. It sounds like being on a website, but no, it's really good. There's a lot of really interesting plot scenarios. What scenarios? I just play it. You'll like it. Like, that's how I think a lot of conversations are going to be concluding with these more narratively focused games.
Yeah, they are. That's a really good example, because those are definitely rising in popularity, like Until Dawn, the Telltale games, obviously. And yeah, that is what it is. It's like, how do you talk about it without just... for example, I watched like the Completionist's Until Dawn video, and it was pretty much just a plot summary, because that's pretty much all the game is, right?
Yeah.
Like, it felt like he was just reading me a storybook. But, like, what else would you talk about, right? Well, if you hit circle, this happens. But if you hit square, oh boy, this happens. Like, there's not a lot there other than that. So what are you going to talk about? Of course you're going to talk about the story. So we're seeing just all these new avenues of entertainment, or the interactive media, as we like to call it, that it's going to kind of change how we talk about them from as YouTubers, like how we talk about them in talking about games. But I also wonder if like this whole Undertale experience is going to make people more wary of just what people say. Like, I guess in a perfect world, I hope people will hear what people have to say about a game, but don't let it define an experience for them, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, this person said this game is really, really good, so I want to play it. Cool, I'm going to play it, but I'm going to form my own opinion. And I'll see how it is. And hopefully people will respect my opinion in return. Like that'll ever happen.
You might be asking a little much of the internet. I don't know, man.
I know.
I don't know if you've been here before.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
It's,
yeah, that's what the internet is, right? It's just people being nice to each other all the time.
So anyways, it's you made a really good point about the reviewing scene and how reviewers are going to have to start talking about these games differently, because there's a very clear divide in the way that we talk about video games in a review sense, in a sort of buyer's guide sense, and the way that we review movies, the way that we talk about film or even TV shows. Because with a film, the way we review video games is that, at least from what I've seen, like the general review, you know what I mean? Like the review that you watch, just like a general review of a game, that any YouTuber has done since like 2009. There's a very clear cut way in which we do it. You either get a plot synopsis with like jokes and stuff, which is sort of like more of a comedic review, and, or you'll get one that has to break down the mechanics and explain to the player how it works and why it's fun to play or why it's interesting or whatever. And that's interesting. That's how games work. That's how you talk about them. That's how you play them. How do you play them, right? You don't play the story. You'll play the game. You control the mechanics. But with these new Telltale games, with Until Dawn, with Life is Strange, they're all played the same way. Essentially, it's a story moving forward. You make some choices. The story does different things. It's sort of like those old FMV games where like either you died or you lived and the plot moved forward. Like you press a button at a certain point and one of two scenarios occurs. But in here we're getting multiple scenarios that tie into each other and have different branching things going on depending on how you do it. So the problem isn't so much that we don't know how to avoid the spoilers. The problem, I think, is more so in regards to reviews, is that we don't know how to talk about narrative games in a different way. Because you can't review them like you would a regular game. Like I said before, like what are you going to say? You press circle. Like you said, like you press circle, this happens. You press square, this happens. It's a really diverse game. It's nice that we can say those sorts of things. And it's nice that we can explain how they're played. but we need to find a different way to discuss how the plot works. Because with a film, you would say the general idea. What's behind it? How does it make you feel? This, that, and the other thing. And a game review is kind of like, there's combat and combos, and when you string your combos together, different things occur, and you're like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, it's fine. Like, we're explaining how the game works and what you're doing when you're playing it, but these new games require us to discuss the plot in a different way than we ever have with many other games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you see, like, a book review, they don't talk about, like, now, depending on how you read the book, might determine how you experience the book. If you read it really fast, you might miss a piece or two. If you read it really slow, the story might drag on. Like, it's not the way in which you read it is always the same, and it's not even discussed because that's stupid. Why would you talk about that in a book review? Yeah. But games are so much different in that we can talk about that in any normal game, where how you play it can affect how you experience it. But yeah, with the narrative games, it's a lot more like a book or a movie. And so I think you're totally right. We need to find out how can we review them effectively without just being a plot synopsis.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's still, it's a newer thing, so we're still figuring it out.
For sure.
Yeah. And how do we, I mean, back to Undertale, like, how do we sell a game without one, overhyping it, and two, giving away too much? And I think we're learning how to do it. And this is a good experience to put our feet in the water with it.
Yeah. It's just interesting. I hate to say that word a million times over and over again.
Sorry.
Shut up, Siri. Anyways,
I
my bad.
It's funny with my Undertale video, part of the reason I did it is I was talking with people and we were fed up that so many reviews didn't say anything, and it's the best game ever, but not explaining why. And so I wanted a game that just thoroughly explained everything in it, and like, here is exactly what happens and why it was so cool, and it really, touched me emotionally and stuff, instead of just nothing. And like, I wanted something that had some meat to it. So, and obviously you have to then have the spoiler warnings, and you have to warn people. And I've had a lot of people tell me, "Hey, I haven't beaten it yet, so I haven't watched your video yet, but I'm going to watch it after." And that's what I did with Jock's video, actually. So I watched like the first 2 minutes of Jock's review, and he was kind of one of the first to have a video out there, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And so I watched like the first 2 minutes, and then I said, okay, I don't want to do too much. I don't want to learn too much before experiencing it. And so I played it, and then I finished his video. And so, that's cool. Like, I'm glad people are doing that they want to get their experience for themselves. But I don't think we as reviewers should feel like we have to dance around stuff, Yeah. Like, I feel like we should be able to say, hey, this is exactly why. It was so cool. Did you experience this part? Because I did, and it was awesome. I mean, obviously with, spoiler stuff if we want to do that, but I don't feel like we should have to dance around stuff and say, it's really cool, but you should just see for yourself. And, like, as a video review, like, I want to know exactly why. And so that stuff frustrated me, seeing spoiler-free stuff that was just, it didn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
So
it was something that I think, again, BioShock did a lot of, and
it's a good example. BioShock's a good example.
It's a good example. I think more for the twist than anything else. Like, obviously the plot is pretty paper thin for the most part. Mm-hmm. There's not really a whole lot going on until the ending, until everything starts to come together.
Yeah,
and that's one of those games that I can look at and say, that's something I don't want to spoil for anyone. That's something I don't want to explain for anyone other than how you play it. But if I were to say this thing happens at the end with a character, makes you hit him with a golf club, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
Like, if I were to say that, someone's going to be like, "Oh, what does that mean? What are you talking about?" And you can't explain it because you don't want to ruin it. And if you were to write a review, like, what do you say? Like, you can't review the plot. It's a game, but with like Undertale, it still has gameplay mechanics, but a lot of them only exist in the combat section. But much like many other JRPGs, it's sort of just the combat, and then everything else is plot. Everything else is walking around, buying stuff, having conversations, and that's fine. But talking about that is hard when you're trying to explain the game and why you fell in love with it. Because I don't think a lot of people fell in love with it, Undertale specifically. That's not that many people fell in love with Undertale because of the dodging the bullets mechanic, like in the combat. Like, I don't think anyone was playing that and they were like, wow, that was really neat. Like, people maybe fell in love with the conversational combat, but again, like, that's just having a conversation with the enemy and seeing how the plot moves forward. Even fighting the random enemies had the same thing, where I was, like, always interested to see how different things occur. Like, there's that one, what is it? The mermaid horse thing that flexes into the sky. Yep. Like, that was really funny, and no one spoiled that for me, so it was funny and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But if I were to talk about the game, I'd be like, this part was really cool because he flexes and then he goes into the sky, and people would be like, okay, that's cool. Like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
But just seeing that on your own for the first time is so much more interesting than having someone tell you it. So that makes it harder for reviewers because you can't explain the one thing that was so interesting to you, which was the plot, without blatantly saying it. And that's a shame.
It does. It leaves it's a conundrum.
Yeah. And
I was going to say something, but I totally forgot. I had the brain fart. It was, no, it's gone. All right. Well, cool. It's a weird enigma thing that we don't, I think it's all the things that we said over the course of this cast that combined into one to make it that way. You know, it's not one specific thing that made Undertale the way it is, but it's all those things combined into one.
Yeah.
Oh, I think what I was going to say was just, you're right about the combat. The combat was like a really cool addition. Like, I think it was kind of like a neat little cherry on top of the cake that, like, hey, this combat is cool. It's different than a typical RPG combat. But it's not the thing that people remember most. People aren't like, play Undertale, the combat is so cool. Yeah. It is. It's awesome, but it's not that. It's play Undertale because the story's great.
Exactly.
Any closing thoughts on our conversation?
If I were to recommend Undertale to anyone, it would be because the plot is interesting. It would be because it's a great game. You should play it. But, don't ask me why.
I can't tell you why. Just go play it.
Just play it. No, definitely, if you're listening to this and you haven't played Undertale, what are you doing? But if you're listening to this and you've only beaten Undertale one time, go play it again. Go find out something new. Get another ending. And then see if that changes the way that you look at the game. See if that changes the way that you perceive the fan base getting upset at reviewers and stuff like that. And if there's another game that you love, and you can't explain why because you don't want to spoil it, just don't bother. Don't hype it up on Twitter because you're just going to ruin it for everyone else.
It just ruins people's lives, as we found.
And Caspasaurus will make you mad on Twitter. I promise.
Well, that is a good point though, because, boy, I lost it again. What was I going to say? We were saying before, wow, this is just terrible. Shoot. Go back. What were you just saying before that?
Before what? The Twitter thing?
Yeah.
If there's a game that you love, and you can't explain why, don't just hype it up blindly?
Before that.
Okay.
We're getting candid on the cast.
Oh boy.
It was going to be a really good point. I promise.
It was, I don't even remember anymore, because now you got me thinking about it over what I said. Great cast. Thanks for watching, guys.
All right. Okay, we'll see you guys next time. I've been Snoman.
I've been Chadunda.
You know what? We're going to wrap it, because I totally forgot, and that's fine.
All right.
Wow, I'm just terrible today. Thank you so much for being on, Chadunda. This was a blast.
Yeah.
Good talk. It's a hard conversation, because it's a very complicated topic, but
yeah.
I think we did it justice.
I think we did a great job. I think we did it better than anyone else. Be sure to subscribe to Snoman.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just me.
Just Snoman. Just Snoman. Be sure to also subscribe to Jack Bros. Always subscribe to Jack Bros.
Yep. Everybody, go do it now. But of course, always subscribe to Chadunda. Do that one first before any others, and then you'll have a good time. You'll see some good stuff. Go check out what's your latest big video?
Latest big video was on Payday 2 and the recent microtransaction conundrum that occurred with that. So if you're interested in Payday 2, if you're interested in watching someone do a little investigative journalism, then I'd recommend checking that out.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Good stuff. Go check it. It might be, I don't know, because when this is posted, you might have a new one. But they're all good, so just go watch them all. And they're great.
Snoman, stop. You're making me blush. Making me blush.
Hey, thanks again for being on. Thank you all for listening and just being an awesome audience. Yeah, go play a game that you like and then talk about why you like it, but don't ruin it for people. That's bad. But just go play games, guys. Games are good. They're fun.
Yeah.
I'm just rambling. Just rambling at this point. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Bye-bye. See ya.
Peace. Have a good one.